Good evening and welcome to From the 80s View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown, and today's guest is Coach Darren Kohne. Darren, the recruitment of prospective student athletes to college. Tell me a little bit about that. What do you think?
Yeah, Cedric, it's changed a lot in recent years, but I still think it's a wonderful avenue for, student athletes to earn a free and or reduced education.
What do you think about parents' involvement in athletics today, Darren?
I think parents' role are to put their child in a position to succeed and then be their number one supporter, be a mentor, but then most importantly, step aside and let those entrusted to do their jobs.
Right. And the preliminary injunction in the NCAA right now, what are your thoughts?
Ooh, it's a bit of a mess right now. I certainly see that temporary change for sure is happening, but probably a bigger change is going to be inevitable here down the road.
These topics and more on From the 80s View. Let's get it. Welcome back. Welcome back. Before we bring back our guest this evening, I'd like to give honor to God, who's the head of my life, because without him, none of the things that I do would be possible. So now let's bring back our very special guest, Coach Darren Kohne. There you are, Darren. How are you? How are you this evening? How's everything going?
Man, I'm blessed. Life is great, busy, hectic, but that means you're in demand, I suppose, and trying to live the good life one day at a time. We go back several decades, so it's just happy to see that smile.
And that is so true, Darren, because not only are you the president of Darren Kohne Enterprises, LLC, not only have you been an advanced scout in the NBA for the Brooklyn Nets, the Atlanta Hawks, the Chicago Bulls. We met when you were an assistant coach at Central Michigan. I had a player, and you recruited that player heavily. You got that player, and that player was good for you at Central Michigan, the Chippewas, and did some really good things for you. But you've been at Stephen F. Austin, you've been at High Point, and you've been at Bowling Green as assistant coach. Darren, tell the viewers a little bit about your journey in coaching, and then now you are your color commentary, and you kind of do that as a hobby, right? Because you have other interests and other career aspirations and things like that. But can you tell our viewers a little bit about your journey from coaching to being someone that calls games?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, I want to make it clear that I started at a very, very young age, because all those things that you named off make me sound pretty old, man. But truly, I was very fortunate to start coaching and getting involved in both professional sports internships and things like that as early as 17 years old. And it was a real blessing. I had some great mentors in my high school who kind of guided me to start taking steps to earn experience to reach what I was voicing as my career goals. So I started off at a young age doing some internships with Cleveland Cavaliers, the Toledo Mud Hens, and the Toledo Storm, which are minor league baseball and hockey respectively. I worked for the Mid-American Conference. And then, at the same time was coaching high school and AAU basketball while working on my bachelor's and master's degree. After that, I went on to coach 14 or 15 years at the Division I college level for men's basketball, and then made a transition to the NBA, was a player development coach, coached in the NBA G League, and spent several years with multiple different organizations as an NBA talent and advanced scout. So that was quite the journey, encompassed 20 plus years and living in, 12 or more states. Originally from Ohio, but got to see basically the entire country. That journey has taken me to all 50 states and various amount of countries. And, now after a bit of a midlife pivot, have done a lot more entrepreneurial and business type ventures, mostly because I wanted to be a little bit more grounded and not moving every year or so to be closer to family. I've had some health issues within parts of the family. And but to stay close to the game of basketball, I do a fair amount of mentorship. I have a youth mentorship program in Toledo, Ohio, where we fund individuals to go to college for free. As you mentioned, I do 20 to 25 games of color commentary of high school, college, and professional basketball for various networks. And then also still do some part-time kind of on-demand scouting, both for sports agencies and prospective NBA teams if they have a need or desire. So stay real close to the game, do summer camps in the summer, speak at different camps, run my own camps, and I'm always available in multiple different facets as a consultant. Something that I've taken on here just in the last couple of years, kind of stumbled upon it, really didn't seek it out, is I've been consulting athletic departments on improving their processes and also hiring at the high school level specifically.
Well, Coach, you've been doing a lot. You've been doing a lot. But when we met, you had that hustle mentality to you as well, And our meeting was because of the joy of watching the player that I had at the 2-year level, and then with Coach Ernie entrusting you with going out and finding talent. You brought in our player, and he was a pretty good player for you. And then there was another. I didn't have direct connection to the guard that you had, but they ended up being really close friends on that squad and playing well for the Chippewas. Let's jump right into these topics, Coach. You've done a lot of recruiting. You've seen the recruiting process and how that recruiting process lands on young men, young women. You didn't recruit women, but you've been involved in that process with the families. What is the recruitment of prospective student athletes, or PSAs as we call them, to the college level right now? What's going on with that, Darren?
Yeah, I think it's changed a lot, specifically if you're talking about the high school student athlete. I think it was much more important prior to the transfer portal being made more, made more official and made more common. And then also the new NIL, where colleges would recruit multiple years back, and you would start recruiting freshmen and sophomores and juniors at the high school level. And I'm not saying that doesn't still happen, especially at the Power 5 and the highest levels. But when you look at across the whole 300 plus Division I schools, and then even the Division II and beyond, it's changed because there's a much higher focus on recruiting the transfer athlete, the athlete who perhaps has already been through the rigors of the college level, specifically the Division I level, or already shown some level of success. So it's viewed a bit more as a safer bet, but because you have to essentially wait for those seasons to end, it delays the recruiting process.
Sure.
I think, you can certainly relate to this, that at times, players, when they went to the junior college level, might get over recruited from where they did at the high school level because they've shown that they can produce at least at the 2-year level at an advanced level from high school. And the same thing's happening now that the transfer portal is becoming the focal point, as opposed to you used to, opportunistically look if there was a transfer available or a transfer moving back closer to your university, or, someone that you had a relationship with. But now there's whole recruiting philosophies geared towards chasing and pursuing and strategizing what transfer athletes are going to be available. And that's, for most coaching staffs, is at the top of the list. And so it basically pushes things out a little later in the process, where I think kids in the past, as a sophomore and junior, would have a really good picture of what their recruiting opportunities look like. And maybe they would change a little bit as in their senior year if they had a nice year. Now it's more so they're not even really understanding who's serious about them until midway through their senior year, or perhaps even beyond into the spring or summer. So it's delaying choices, it's delaying decisions, it's delaying process. I don't know that any of it's bad. It's just certainly
Right.
different. And there's probably less high school student athletes getting the opportunity at the Division I level from the jump. And perhaps they're actually having to get into that cycle and go to the Division II level or the junior college level and then transfer up. So, when we got into this industry, you were recruiting a guy for a 4 to 5 year commitment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, perhaps they redshirted, or perhaps they had an injury year, but you thought you were going to have 95% of your players for 4 years and oftentimes 5 years. And now it's much more common that players are going to 2, 3, and sometimes 4 universities throughout their career. So you're almost having to first re-recruit your own guys year after year,
Absolutely.
and then go on to recruit transfers, and then junior college, prep school, and then high school, sort of the last bullet point. Not any lesser important, but just lower down the priority list, so delayed on that timeline of how the process takes place, if that makes sense to the viewers.
And so it's a different dynamic for the high school student athlete, right? When the high school student athlete used to be valued coming out of high school for what the body of work that he or she did when they were coming into college, right? Now, like you said before, they kind of take a little bit of a backstage, because now with the pressure of coaches having to win, right? Because coaches are right now 3-5 year deals, right? But when you have that second year and you're not doing really well, Darren, as well as I do, that they call Mr. or Mrs. Booster and say, hey, they only have a certain amount of dollars left on their contract. Let's go ahead and make this decision. We need you to go ahead and give us this money so we can get this person up out of here so we can do something else. So it gives a different thought to one and done, right? Because the one and dones, Darren, were the top 15 kids in the country, right? That you thought, hey, that young person can leave after 1 year and go play in the NBA, right? I don't think we've seen it as much on the women's side for the WNBA, but I'm sure with equity and things like that, if they wanted to leave, if they have it set up like that in the WNBA, they could. But on the men's side, now one and done means I don't like what's going on with my coach. I'm not playing. I get an opportunity to leave. I'm leaving, right? But then the argument that I have as an academic is, how does that matriculation look? How does being able to go from school to school to school look for them to get their degree, right? And so here's a follow-up question to that, Darren. Darren, you hypothetically, you were just hired at XY or ABCD university, right? What is your approach in recruitment, knowing what you know what you knew then, you know what you know now, the dynamic of everything now. What is Coach Kohne's approach to recruitment right now?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you said a lot there, and one of the things when making that decision is understanding that it's a what have you done for me lately business, and perhaps world that we live in right now. So, you mentioned having a 3 to 5 year contract, but you can't even count on getting that. So it's immediate action. So the first thing you're doing is you're trying to understand who are your best 3 to 5 players that you're inheriting on the current roster, and doing everything that you can do to re-recruit them to keep them at their current, location that you just got hired at. And then you're going out and you're trying to find guys who perhaps played at a higher level, but maybe weren't happy with their role, their minutes, or just weren't a great fit, and seeing if you can recruit them to add to the fold. And then after that, then you're looking at guys who overperformed or overachieved, perhaps at a little bit lower level, at least on paper, when we talk about the levels, to add to your mix. And all of that, you got to jumble and mend that new chemistry of all these people. Because, when people are leaving, they're leaving for a reason. So investigating and understanding why they're leaving, and is it going to be a chemistry issue when you have all these new people that are coming from past situations to your new situation, and trying to clean the slate and start from fresh. But each one, say you bring in 5 new players or 7 new transfers, each one of them has a reason and an agenda to why they made the switch. So piecing that all together like a puzzle, and you talked about the one and done. we used to talk about the poor Kentuckys and the poor Michigan States and, and Duke, and how do they do it? Because it's one and done every year, to the NBA. But now it's like, I'll tell you who has it the worst, the mid-major.
Absolutely. FCS has it the worst.
Yeah, because think about this. You're trying to recruit the high major transfer that's coming down that can be an impact at your place. But when you bring in the high school player, it's such a gamble, because if you get a guy who's good enough to play right away and they perform, they're trying to jump to a higher level. Or if you bring a guy in and your staff works their tail off to develop them and they average 12 points a game, next thing you know, their phone's ringing and like, hey, well, you average 12 points a game in the Mid-American Conference. How about you come play in the Big Ten Conference?
Exactly.
And so it's a situation where everybody's a one and done now.
Yep.
It is a struggle academically, because, certain schools don't transfer, especially, electives and that kind of thing. So you're figuring out transfer credits and degree plans line up where you're not retaking classes and starting over, but you're still trying to be on course with the APR and graduate in the X amount of time that you have allotted for your eligibility. So
that's a whole different other show, Darren.
Oh, yeah.
That's a different show. But Darren, do me a favor, stay with us, right? I have to pay the bills. I have to take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll pick up some other topics.
For sure.
Right. Thank you. You are watching From the AD's View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. We'll be right back after these breaks.
Water. It's everywhere. We drink it, we bathe with it, we cook with it. Coffee's made with water. Toilets won't flush without it. It's used for washing clothes, dishes, utensils, pots, pans, floors, and our teeth. Plants and crops need water, animals drink it, and fish need it too. And don't forget, we can have a lot of fun in the water. Water. What would we do without it?
From the creative team that brought you the Browning Project and Dead by Morning comes a new thriller that will change the way you look at white-collar crime forever. Falling from the Sky.
I'm Leon Thomas with the Leon Thomas Group. Podcast, virtual events, webinars, streaming shows, and so much more. We want to be your partner in all things virtual.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown, and you are watching From the AD's View. Before we get back to our special guest, I'd like to talk to you about and promo and pub my book, How Black Men Overcome Racial Barriers in the Status Quo. It's an NCAA institution, a narrative inquiry. I wrote the book because I wanted to give light to how young African-American men who aspire to ascend to leadership roles in athletics, especially at the Power 5 level, wanted to shed some light on their journey and how they went through it, right? And three things came out of that research: the benefit of role models and how those role models can affect your career, the role model expectations, the things that the expectations that they had of themselves and the expectations that they had of those that were mentoring them. And then last was the perceived racial barriers, right? Some of them are perceived, some of them are real, but I wanted to shed some light on that. And you can purchase that book at Amazon.com. And again, the title is how Black Men Overcome Racial Barriers in the Status Quo in NCAA Institutions. If you want to learn more about that book, you can contact me at cedricmbrown.org. That's my website. And you can click on the podcast link in that on that webpage, cedricmbrown.org, and you can view past episodes of From the AD's View. If you'd like to learn more about the professional services that I provide, you can also go to cedricmbrown.org. And then finally, if you or someone you know would like to be a guest on our show, just go on cedricmbrown.org and email me, and we can get in contact and we can talk about those opportunities. The show is seen on Sundays at 6:40 Central and 7:40 Eastern. And you'll always get open and honest views on that show each Sunday evening at 6:40 Central, 7:40 Eastern. Let's welcome back our guest, Coach Darren Kohne. Coach, we left the show before the midpoint break. We left talking about how we would recruit potential prospective student athletes, PSAs, to the college level now with the climate that we have going on now, NIL, portal, all those things. Let's briefly talk about, because I want to be able to get to the last topic. How are parents' involvement in athletics good or bad, Coach?
Yeah, sure. It's a tough one because it's always case specific. I think oftentimes, what gets highlighted though is when parents are over involved or can have a negative effect on the experience for the student athlete or for their specific child. I mean, as I said in the opening, you want to raise your child, teach them the right thing, teach them the manners, teach them respect, teach them work ethic, and put them in position to succeed. Help them find the right opportunity for them versus, in line with their goals and their skill set. And be a mentor, be a supporter, do everything you can to keep them in a positive mindset. But then, step aside and let those entrusted to be their coaches and their strength coaches and their mentors and their academic coaches to do their job. I think oftentimes parents try to intervene too much. And it's not with negative intent. It's just almost like a selfish desire to, provide the best for your own. And sometimes that can get in the way because you're not in your lane. So staying in your lane and remembering it's not always about what you can do for me in terms of the school, the team, the coach, the university, whatever it is, not what you can do for me, but what you can do for the we and what your child can do for the we. And be a part of that team, be a part of that group, be a part of that organization to achieve and get something done bigger than you. I mean, that's why we do sports. That's why we're involved with extracurricular activities that aren't individualized, because, there's something special about being a part of a group, organization, team, a collective that can achieve more as a whole than you can as an individual.
Absolutely. And I appreciate your perspective on that, Coach, because I am a former head coach that coached my son. I coached Angelo. He was my first guest on my podcast in season 1, and now I have the runt of the litter coming up. My daughter Cheyenne, she is playing both JV and varsity at Valparaiso High School for Coach Candace Wilson. And, I have to stay in my lane, right? Because, Darren, that, you and I have both probably forgotten more about basketball than a lot of people know right now, right? And so I catch myself. And so you're so right. As a parent, we have to stay in our lanes and we have to allow our student athlete children to fend for themselves, right? To be respectful and ask questions and talk about those relationships and build those relationships. And so that's a very important aspect that you just brought up. But I'm going to switch gears on you real quick, Darren. We have in the news, we have this preliminary injunction that the federal judge in West Virginia came down and said that to keep the student athletes from participating, right, after that second transfer was something that they needed to look at, right? And so they came back and gave a clarification yesterday saying that the student athlete, if they play, that they're going to use up a year of their eligibility. And so everybody's up in arms right now, right? You had a young man, I believe, that was in a Power 5 over the weekend. I mean, before the weekend, played. And so if they come back and say that, no, we're going to keep it where it was, he uses a year of his eligibility for what, 9, 10 games, 30%. What are your thoughts about that, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways the conversation can go. It's a tough situation. First and foremost, I've received a lot of opportunity in my career from the NCAA. However, there's been oftentimes in my career where, things just don't make sense. I mean,
yep.
The young people listening, they don't remember the phone book, but the NCAA manual is as thick as a phone book, and there's so many rules and fine print, that are left up for interpretation. That aren't necessarily black and white, and then B, things that are that contradict each other. So it's a bit antiquated, and it's time for some change. And I feel like in this particular situation, the NCAA sort of created their own problem because
they did.
Yeah, they pushed the organization of the transfer portal, but then want to restrict it when it's taken full advantage of. I don't love the situation we're in, but I think the players have to be able to transfer and play now because that's the precedent. That's sort of the program that was set up. Now, for me, I'm an old school loyalist, and I hate the transfer and the jump and ship and that kind of thing. But it either has to be all in or all out, and it can't be state specific and conference specific and that kind of thing. So I think with the immediate injunction, the player's going to be able to play. Now, I got to admit, I'm not 100% expert on all the details of it, but if I understood it, that's only for the rest of 2023. So it's only for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then it's going to be revisited on December 27th, I think.
Yep.
At a higher level. But certainly change is happening. But at some point, the NCAA is going to have to, and sooner than later, probably tear this down and restart the plan, the structure of how this is all going to go. Because otherwise, the big money schools, the Power 5 schools, they're going to break off and do their own thing. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? They're gonna somebody's gonna organize a new organization,
and do their own thing, right? And so 1906, when the NCAA was founded, I believe, and my fact checkers will let me know. It's going to be chaos, right? It's going to be the wild, wild west. And you are so right that the NCAA has, they were trying to do something good. They were trying to do something right. But it's caused more of a chaotic environment. And I do believe that the president of NCAA now, Charlie Baker, will find a way, just like Dr. Emmert did. He did a great job there. Charlie Baker is doing a fantastic job in his inaugural year. I think that they're going to pull it together and they're going to figure it out, right? Because it's all about whom? It's all about the student athletes, right? We're trying to do the best for the men and women that are participating in school, matriculating, getting their degrees, and, trying to fulfill that dream. Darren, as I always do at the end of the show, I ask the final question, and it is this. Coach, what does faith or spiritualness or spirituality mean to you?
Man, faith has always meant to me that there's a bigger picture out there. And every morning when I'm fortunate enough to wake up and open my eyes, I know there's more growth for me personally, and there's more impact for me to make on others. Faith that there's bigger things going on in this universe way above my power that I can never even comprehend, but I get a chance to be a part of it. And I'm trying to develop myself to be the best that I can be on my time, the best I can be during my time on this earth, but to leave that legacy where I impact everyone that I come in contact with. Maybe it's just I bring out a smile. Maybe it's a life-changing move. But I try to be a person that uses my blessings to impact others every time I walk into a room or have a conversation. And I have that faith each morning when I wake up, I'm going to be put in a position to do those things.
That's powerful, Coach. I appreciate that. And Coach, if individuals want to get in contact with Coach Kohne or want to be a part of your camps or your consultation, how can they get in contact with you, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, probably on Twitter or X is a real easy way for anyone at Coach Darren K. I also have a blog at www.coachdarrenk.com. A little slow right now with traffic on there, but a lot of projects that I'm working on coming up here in the new year. So, especially for speaking and consulting, things of those natures, I'm pretty readily available.
Well, as you always know, Darren, if there's ever anything that I can do to help you, I'm a phone call away, man. So, I mean, we go back, as my uncles used to say, we go back like 4 flats on a Cadillac, right?
Hey, look, I knew you before you were a doctor. Now you're doctor.
Right.
I'm just blessed to still be in the conversation. Now you big time, like Stairmaster.
You my guy, man. You're a mother from a different, for a brother from a different mother, and so we do what we do for student athletes, and we do what we do to influence and impact their lives in a positive light, because at some point in time, Coach, we are that positive male role model in some's life, right? And it doesn't, sometimes it can be, from cultural types of things, but all the time it's from a place of love and a place of caring, a place of accountability, right? Because sometimes, you got to get after them a little bit, right? And I always say tough love is love, right? Ernie told me that. Coach Ziegler told me that tough love is love. So I do appreciate you, sir. I do appreciate you, and I thank you for being a part of something that I'm just trying to talk to people and give people real, honest, open views from different perspectives. And Coach Darren Kohne, I really appreciate your perspective. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember, someone did it for us, so it's just our turn to do it for others.
Thank you. And I would like to thank Coach Darren Kohne for being a special guest on our show this evening. As I close the show, I do want everybody to really look into this preliminary injunction with the NCAA and take some time to read any kind of correspondence that there is out there, because it is something that really is going to impact student athletes, both males and females, as we move forward. Because what we want to make sure, we have to have policies, we have to have procedures in place, we have to have bylaws. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that each and every decision that's made, that it's made to help in a positive way and influence in a positive way these student athletes. So once again, I thank you so much. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Cedric M. Brown, and you can see more episodes of From the AD's View, and you can get an open and honest assessment of the things that are going on in our world, educationally, sports, entertainment, family, and faith. Good night, and God bless.